All right, DJ LeRoy.
NightWatchman, how you doing, buddy?
Good. Welcome to another Monday evening.
Absolutely. Soul Lunch Primetime, broadcasting live from WHCR, the voice of Harlem. So you know what? We got a serious lineup, man.
Okay, so who do we have today?
We got sure enough restaurateurs in the house, okay? And I got to say, one of the things, my son's, when he was growing up, one of his favorite spots was at 105th and Broadway. Restaurant by the name of Henry. And so we welcome to the stage Mr. Henry Rinehart. What's up, Henry?
Thank you, Curtis. I love you, brother. I really got to say, both of our young men with the J's.
That's
hanging
right.
out,
That's right.
Enjoying French fries, enjoying life at Henry's as both of them grew up. My boy's 15 now.
Jules, major props, buddy. Even though he has to change his football association, because I think he was a Chelsea guy, right?
No, even better. He's an Arsenal man.
Oh, I love him. I love him.
Just like his daddy.
Thank you. So you know what's going to happen? We're gonna have Jules on the show. So done.
I'd love that, Ben. Okay. And I'm an Arsenal man as well. I was born in Highbury Hospital.
Okay.
London man, a North London man, as you can tell by the accent. Acting school beat it out of me, and I sound something like a New Yorker now, you know, after 20 years on Broadway.
There you go.
And even more importantly, a Harlemite, okay?
And more importantly, a Harlemite, and Jules was born in Harlem.
See, there you go.
We are on Claremont Avenue over by Riverside Church. I love that part of Harlem. I love Riverside Church, that whole area, Manhattan School of Music.
Okay.
That was our block.
Excellent. So, you know what, NightWatchman? We got another guest. We have another guy. I consider him a friend. I mean, we like embraced right away when I met him for the first time. And that is none other than the executive director of the New York City Hospitality Alliance, Mr. Andrew Rigie. What's up, Andrew?
Oh, Curtis, my favorite. Every time I hear Curtis's voice and I see you, I get happy. So
thank you. And I love always, you know, the postings that you do with your daughter, man. Beautiful.
Well, we just had her pre-K Zoom graduation this afternoon. So you can imagine a bunch of 4 and almost 5-year-olds trying to do graduation via Zoom for an hour.
Oh man, I love it. I love it.
Graduations, Zoom weddings, Zoom funerals.
And they know whatever. We will soon be doing raising a glass in Zoom cocktails. Okay,
yeah, you got it. Yeah, the circle of life is happening on Zoom.
True.
So Curtis, we still have another guest in our waiting room.
We do indeed. Well, see, she knows or whatever. I do all the waiting for some of her exquisite cuisine. I first went there when I wanted to. I heard, this spot has some good buffalo wings, and you know everybody claims that they have good buffalo wings, but until you actually try the wings at Harlem Public, you don't know what good buffalo wings are. Okay, so, but that's only part of the tale. Can you also say the Wallace? Can you also say, of course, a place where me and my honey actually had a beautiful anniversary, and that, of course, is the Honeywell. I give you, ladies and gentlemen, Lauren Brie Lynch. Give it up.
Hey guys, so you forgot about me for a second. All the boys
Even the best.
They get to keep you waiting for a change.
Exactly.
No, I'm at 20 minutes. I'm showered and ready in 20 minutes. So
yeah. There you go. Break those stereotypes. Let's break them down.
Exactly. We're in the Honeywell right now. It's not open yet. Hopefully soon, but that's the only place I can get away from, get some peace and quiet when I'm around here.
And ultimately, if you want to be like transported back into the 70s, Honeywell, that's where you go. Yeah. No doubt. Yeah. Well, you know what? NightWatchman, we talked about how we're going to actually do the format of this show. But one of the things that's just I have to say about Lauren is the fact that, and she told me that when she created, of course, Harlem Public, it was going to be a social gathering. Folks got there to either check out sports, to maybe just have a nice little first date or maybe second, and just have a gathering. And one thing that I was disappointed early on, Lauren, was the fact that you did not offer delivery. So like, what the hell? Come on. But what has the pandemic forced us to do? To pivot.
Okay. Well, somehow that translates into you being right, DJ LeRoy, but I'm not sure that's actually how it works.
I know. Well, after 8 years of fighting it off, we told everybody, you know, on social media, we're like, you've asked for delivery for 8 years, and if you don't pull through, we're not going to do that.
So you're doing. So tell me about the early months of the pandemic and how you've been able to adjust.
Yeah, we basically, you know, we closed down Wallace early because we didn't have the ability to socially distance. We didn't have the ability to go to 50%. It was beautiful weekends, and we just, you know, it was scary times. We didn't know how bad the pandemic was going to get. And, you know, at that time you'd hear people be like, well, it's, you know, it's in California. It's not in New York yet. And then they're like, well, it's downtown. It's not uptown. And I'm like, we're just going to close down altogether. So we did that. And then with Harlem Public, we were like, we're going to have to, I mean, thankfully the to-go alcohol went through, that everyone's hard work and lobbying, and we understood that lifeline for the businesses. And then just figuring out how all these delivery services were going to work, how to grow our business, what platforms we would use. We knew right away we wouldn't use Grubhub and the ones that have extremely high fees.
Right. How
to steer people towards our site, how to make sure our food quality remains even though we're delivering. And then when it came to the Honeywell, it's very, very tight in here. So we decided that we would have to close down. We have no way of social distancing. We have an electric kitchen where we do like 85% cocktails, and they're not, you know, they're all fancy cocktails. So we've started doing some pop-ups. We're doing it this weekend. We're doing an event with Grey Goose for Pride, but we're really hoping, we're really looking to get our back patio open, which is something that we've been arguing with neighbors from behind for 2.5 years now. We have DOB approval, we have community approval, but we were waiting for SLA approval. And with the new, you know, there's not much guidance. It's a little bit ambiguous, the guidance that came out on private property and backyards. But our plan is to move forward and stay with the social distancing and hopefully have it open right after 4th of July. So.
Excellent. Well, you know what? One of the things, and Andrew, you can speak to this because certainly we saw one of the initiatives that the city's been promoting, and you've been, you and Henry have been literally at the forefront of that, open streets. Yeah. So do tell. I saw a picture of you outside of Melba's.
Yeah, so I'm still thinking about the wings, actually.
Well, actually, we'll talk about something else, but turkey burger is not bad either. But go ahead.
All right. Yeah, so listen, you know, what happened is obviously we know the restaurant nightlife industry has just been financially devastated. And when we do reopen, it's going to be under reduced occupancy requirements, social distancing requirements. So right now, today it was announced by the mayor that on July 6th, we could potentially move into phase 3, which allows for 50% reduced occupancy indoors. Wow. So we knew that's no way that a business is going to sustain itself. So how do we open up the streets? How do we reimagine how we use public space? The sidewalks, the streets, pedestrian plazas, other areas, to let restaurants and bars set up tables and chairs and start generating some revenue outdoors to offset the lost revenue from the reduced occupancy indoors. And also to bring some life back to the city streets. You know, for the past couple of months, we've just seen, it's kind of like an eerie feeling when you're out there. And restaurants and bars, these are our social gathering places, you know. Everyone talks about social distancing. Well, it's our restaurants and bars is where we come together to socialize. So I think by putting people outside, creating that activity, it helps us get back to, and I hate the phrase a new normal, but I think it gets us back to at least the sense of we're on the path to recovery, and people have been cooped up inside. So it's great to generate economic activity while also generating some social activity that we all need as humans. So I think it's a good place to be at. We have to make sure that we are responsible as business owners. You know, there's a lot of different uses on the public street, from people walking by to riding their bike in a bike lane. So we need to be conscious of that. But at the end of the day, we're all in this together. New York City is going to rise or sink together. I'm a big believer that the city of New York's economy and socialization will not recover unless our restaurant nightlife industry is at the core of that recovery, because we are so ingrained and weaved into the fabric of our city. And we're at a good place. We got a lot, a long journey ahead of us. We're going to need to demand more support from our federal, state, and city lawmakers. But this outdoor dining and reimagining the streets has incredible opportunity for so many people. And we'll continue to have to modify it as needed. But it's a good place. I think we're almost 4,500 restaurants have applied and been self-certified since, the past few days. And I think we'll continue to see, as more restaurants begin to reopen that weren't doing takeout and delivery, start opening up the 50% indoors, we'll start utilizing the outdoor space too. So we'll see another spike in outdoor dining applications. And, and my friend Henry, man, he's been riding his bike around every nook and cranny of this city, generating support for this program. So,
Yes.
What to do with all that free time, huh, Henry?
Yeah, so true, man. So true.
Where the rubber meets the road.
Absolutely. Yeah. And Henry, one thing I have to say, you are consistent. Talk about a dog with a bone. In terms of open streets, you have been on it. I mean, in terms of follow-up and just seeing that these people, from the electeds to other business leaders, that they stay on it. So, Henry, do tell about your involvement with Open Streets.
So Open Streets really dates back to, coming from Europe and seeing how, my grandfather had a pub and had several pubs in London that spill out into the streets every night, and people drink their faces off, and it's by and large very, very safe. And I just think that, we're talking about reimagining public safety and public health through the use of it, access to more public space, so that citizens in restaurants and on the street can be safe. And the available public space has been given over to cars. And I love cars as much as the next person, particularly up in the country. But when I'm in the city, I'm generally on a bus or a train or my bike. And I just don't really feel safe. And as a business person, I never felt that cars were the best use of the streetscape in front of my multi-million-dollar business. And someone parking their car for free was not really working for me. And so I started advocating for it 20 odd years ago. And I think it's how, cafe culture in New York City should be, 100 times what it is now. And Andrew has done such an amazing job. And Lauren, talking about innovating. This is I think one thing people don't understand about the hospitality business in New York City is this is the most competitive industry in the most competitive town, with literally some of the top food talent ever in the history of hospitality. I mean, the traditions in Harlem alone, I don't even need to speak to, because all of us know them so well. But to see the people who feed us treated as essential has been my lifelong mission. And to see the streets not threaten me when I want to ride a bike has been another interest. And what I see in the public space is just much higher use for that space. And Andrew and Lauren and Melba, and, we've been talking about this nonstop. And Andrew has been, when he talks about it, it's kind of like Shakespearean poetry to me, because for him in the hospitality business to understand the impacts that foot traffic and safety has on our businesses is extraordinary. But then to go the next mile and in the course of a pandemic, reimagine public space for a more common good. It's going to be essential for all of our schools when they try to return in the fall, that they have access to public space like this. And frankly, for restaurants, this was a really good start, but it has to be much broader. When we started this, there were 28,000 knife and fork restaurants in New York City, and this is going to touch 5,000 plus, and that's extraordinary. But there's lots of space to the right and to the left of all of these businesses that is boarded up, has a potential to be blights, that industrious food service professionals know how to sweep up and set a table and keep it nicely. And I think this program that Andrew was so instrumental in launching and that I've worked so hard on is going to be a smash success, knockout success when people enjoy each other's company safely. And I do want to point, Andrew has also worked really hard, and Lauren and every single other person operating in the food service space in New York City. DOH compliance and guidelines in New York City for food service are some of the strictest in the world. We are some of the most compliant industries in the world in that compliance environment. And people like Lauren and Andrew and we've been reading best practices from around the world for 100 days now, pretty much nonstop. And the level of new regulation is really, quite frankly, stunning. And to be right at the heart of it with a friend like Andrew and great colleagues like Lauren, and to get to safely serve our community again in a way that is sustainable is exciting. And I think this is a small and very meaningful first step. And I'm really excited that it launched in Harlem, so close to my home, so close to where my family lives and the community I care about deeply. So I'm really excited to share some good news with you all.
Absolutely. So I do notice that we have in East Harlem along Park Avenue. I know that Uptown Grand Central has gotten an approval for one of the Open Streets Initiative permit. I know that FDBA, Frederick Douglass Boulevard Alliance, has put theirs in. Now, my question is, because I told you I was on the 101 bus traveling north along Amsterdam Avenue at 141st, I look and I see Roy Henley of the Grange, and I see in the street bed. So here's the question to you guys. And Lauren, you help me, because you, as a restaurateur, individual owner, you can apply for a permit yourself outside your establishment. Is that correct, guys, or what?
Yep.
100%.
Yeah.
15 minutes.
Yeah, nice and easy. I mean, that was a big thing coming up with this. I've been for years fighting red tape and bureaucracy, trying to make it easier for small businesses to open, to operate, cut the red tape, streamline the permit and licensing process. And that's what we have here. There's no fee. A sidewalk cafe normally can take about 5 to 8 months to get.
That's right.
$5,000. There's no fee for the permit to use that space, and you basically self-certify, and you can be up and operating literally that afternoon or the next day as soon as you roll it out. So that nimbleness was really important to us. And as Henry said, we need to keep going. We need to keep figuring out what works, what doesn't work. How do we get more businesses to participate? Looking at other streets, other plazas to do this. And it's beautiful. It can be everything from putting a couple tables and chairs out front to doing what happened at Melba's, working with the Rockwell Group, the famed architect. Incredible pro bono work at Melba's. And you mentioned before, we had for opening night, Mayor de Blasio and the First Lady there, had a great dinner. And people were walking by, not even the people that were sitting down and eating, but people were coming by and the mayor was there, but Melba's like the mayor of the block. So
that's true.
Melba, that's true. And people were just so happy and enthused. I mean, there's almost tears coming from people's eyes. I'm getting the chills thinking about it because, like I said, they've been cooped up, and to see their favorite places start opening up, people back to work, people enjoying themselves. It's something that we all need, especially during such a trying time. And it's just so trying on so many levels. We just have crisis on top of crisis on top of crisis. And hopefully these communal eating and drinking places will help bring us back together as a community and give us the fortitude to fight ahead on all these other issues that we need to do much better as a society.
Absolutely. So interesting.
Can I think I was thinking Melba was joining us today, but I know that I'm also seeing her at a call I'm doing at 7. So I'm very excited about that. But I just want to talk about her for a second while she's not with us, and for your listeners. This could not have happened to a nicer person who has worked hard and tirelessly and to really serve us and uplift us all and feed us all and cheer us all up. We all know she's great company. And I remember some of my favorite calls at Henry's were Melba calling and saying like, hey, do you have 275 plates? And be like, yeah, of course, Melba. When will you be over? And she would come over and we had this thing. And it was really like, she's a great woman. And, all of the Open Streets work and all of Andrew's great advocacy is really to uplift a group of, some of our greatest citizens. I mean, what Melba does day in and day out to enrich us all is so essential. And to see it honored in that way, I just think all of us feel really, really thankful for that.
Absolutely. No, she's great for sure. And I have to ask you, Lauren, so what Henry and Andrew described in terms of the process, have you found the process to be seamless and fairly easy in terms of being able to get the place outside your restaurant?
Well, first of all, yes.
Okay.
I absolutely have. I did want to mention that, the whole reason that I knew Henry before this call is because I started seeing his advocacy, and here I am. I'm uptown talking to Mark Levine and talking to Al Taylor. Al Taylor called me. He's like, how can we open up the streets? How can we take away the parking? What if people aren't happy? And this was before, Madam Brewer, before she came out and wrote to the Department of Transportation. And I was like, listen, the city needs money. Let us open up, and then you just nail us like every other person does with all these fines. But let's try it first and get our doors open. So I'm very, very thankful. And it was I think it was in our attorney, Paul Brown Levy, in his email that I saw Henry. So I started saying to David, our attorney, I'm like, can you tell Henry this? Can you tell him I talked to this? And finally, I went on LinkedIn. I'm like, I'm going to find this guy and just reach out to him directly. And he's been, both him and Andrew have been really gracious in giving us time, giving me time, and hearing out my ideas. Because it was very, very important that it wasn't just downtown getting this attention. And oftentimes uptown, people they don't have the time to be made aware. Maybe they're really working in their business, or there's other pressing issues that don't allow them to be on the forefront of knowing what's going on throughout the rest of the city. So with Henry once I found out that I knew Henry's already, but he lived in Harlem, and he shared the importance of that. And that was awesome. So back to your question though. It's super easy to get it. I could not believe how easy it is. Wow. I'm still a little confused about the follow-up to the SLA and what we have to supply and the insurances. And, I'm trying, I think I have until tomorrow to send over my diagram to the SLA. I hit up my insurance company. He's like, I don't know what to do. I'm like, I don't know what to do either. So I'm like, I'm going to send you this diagram and just ask the insurance to cover it. And hopefully that will all go through and be easy. But out the gate, we just grabbed a whole bunch of kegs. I used to live in Ireland. I was like, this is what the Irish do. They take their empty kegs, they strip them together. I went down, I got 80 feet of chain. And then I tried to carry it. I went back to the store. I said, can someone, I'll tip you. Can someone bring this to the bar? I'm going to throw my back out. And then that's what we did. We just took every empty keg and we strung them all up. And, the first night, some cars were moving them, trying to move them. But now, I had some words and it's been untouched for the next 2 days. So
she's been out there carving out her turf. She's been like, hey, that keg's with me. Don't let that's my keg.
I'm like, this is our area now this is our jurisdiction for the Department of Transportation. I don't even know what I was saying, but just really trying to make it sound official.
But that was before DOT. DOT came out with a no parking open restaurant sign that you can post now, which I thought was a really nice, elegant solution. And, you know, but I just, that whole piece of like how easy or how hard this is, I just want to stress it continues to be incredibly hard. For Lauren is really being modest. I mean, not only is she prepared in multiple locations in a really densely populated neighborhood, which has a historic infatuation with American cars, she's carved out space. She's done it within compliance of the guidelines. And the guidelines are like a conversation. When you have that fast and liberal a policy towards enacting public space, people are going to push boundaries, and everyone needs to figure out where their boundaries are so that everyone is safe. That's the objective. Secondly, that the people who are serving us are safe and that the businesses have a leg up. But I just want to say it continues to be very, very hard for everybody in hospitality. We're talking about so many millions of lives impacted by the disruption in our industry. And Lauren is created on a scale not only in her neighborhood, but she's also, I think your cousin has developed a line of modular furniture to repurpose public space. And I think it's really important that we're all taking a look at it with a view towards health and safety. And then, you know, Andrew and hospitality and everyone has brought commerce into that space, but in a way that is like, you know, I'm there sweeping the sidewalk every day. When I had 110 feet of frontage at the largest sidewalk cafe in New York City, and Lauren, you'll get a kick out of this, 110 feet long. And my first contract was 20 pages. I signed it in 2 places and it cost me $2,000. And my final contract was $34,000. The contract was 146 pages, binding me to 9 city agencies, and I signed it in 30 different locations.
Wow.
And just the logistical, Andrew was very clear about this earlier, that's 8 to 9 months of your year. You are tracking a multi-departmental process across the bureaucracy in New York City because you want to put a table and chair out. And as my friend Andy Manchell would say about the man who activated the public space in Bryant Park, he said, you need a table and chair. That's what you need to safely activate public space. Andrew's just doing it with much better service, much better design. And the industry is really activating public space in a way that you're going to see is going to be magical. Magical. We have, you know, reinvented 5,000 different locations in New York City in, you know, Andrew, what is this? Like day 10,000, but no, it's incredible how quickly this is happening and how quickly people like Lauren and all the people Andrew and I work with are pivoting. It's really impressive.
Henry, can you tell us a little bit more just about your personal story? We it as an advocate, but I hear that you run a restaurant. And so what happened? Tell us a little bit about what happened when you realized what was going on and how you had to make your changes and adjustments to this crisis.
Well, my restaurant I sold in 2018. So I am, what is really interesting about this work for me is I don't have a dog in the fight. I'm like, we call Andrew the general. I'm like a captain or a colonel or something. Like, you know, I cover a little bit of Harlem, but I'm good downtown, but I know Brooklyn people. I'm in Queens. And also, you know, the interesting thing I think about my personal story is, again, it's about cycling. Like 100 years ago, there was a technology called the bike. It was totally transformative for cities around the world, instantaneously cleaned our streets. Along came a car. The bike got marginalized for 100 years, and we're all dying because of this beast in our midst. And so I'm biking around, I'm doing my thing. But what's really interesting to see is how these worlds are colliding right now. And there's a third collision that we're all going to be managing starting today forward, or really starting Monday forward, which is there's a bike boom happening right now of epic proportions. So normally American bike retailers have a backlog of orders around this time of year of about 5,000 units, generally speaking, 7,000 units. American bicycle manufacturers have a back order as of this month of 750,000 units.
Wow.
Nationally. So people, when and if they get to come back to work fully, there are going to be a lot more cycles. And so there's a bike boom. Additionally, there is going to be a rush to cars, and there's going to be a Carmageddon. And Lauren and her team are setting up in the streets in a vulnerable location. So really, my personal story is, you know, I managed that space for 20 plus years on Broadway and 10 other years in different locations around New York. And I've done it internationally in London and Sydney and Paris. And it's just really predictable what happens. You remove the car from that streetscape and you have livable space. You have valuable public space. And when I talk about value, you know, one of the things Lauren alluded to earlier is part of my activism was because I knew Harlem, you have to compete for resources. Like DOT doesn't have infinite bandwidth or budgets, and they're trying their best and working incredibly hard. But these things we see downtown in the financial district, downtown Brooklyn, in Times Square, that are really appropriate for neighborhoods like Washington Heights, Harlem, Inwood, don't just fall out of the tree. So the idea was to really activate people to actively seek this engagement with the street, and it's going to be really impressive. I'm really looking forward to it. But just to wrap up on that issue, as the cars come back, there is a conflict of interest around the dining that's happening in the streets. And all of us are going to be very diligent in the coming weeks about staying safe as we serve in the streets.
Okay. You know, one of the things I wanted to say now, in terms of elected officials and their support, I certainly know that Gail is absolutely on board 100%. I also see some of the electeds in Harlem have weighed in. Brian Benjamin said that he is, in theory, supportive of it, but there was some caution that wondering about, let's say, opening up onto the sidewalk and to the street bed, how it might affect in terms of the noise level neighbors above. Has there been any pushback, any concern? How do you address that? Anyone?
Well, listen, I think, well, first Senator Benjamin was at Melba's that night.
Yes, he was.
You know, he was enjoying himself, and he's been a huge advocate of, you know, the restaurant industry. And I know he goes way back with you know, Melba and Trinez over at Sylvia's and a lot of others. So, you know, I think he gets it. Listen, you know, a lot of people have asked me about this question. I think the reality is what we're talking about right now is we are in the middle of a pandemic. This is an unprecedented situation. We've never seen anything like this. As I said before, if we want our city to come back, we need our restaurants and our small businesses to come back. And everyone's going to have to compromise a little bit. There's going to be give and take. There's going to be some stuff that everyone may not love. If there's more people on the street, is there going to be some more noise in places? Yeah, but look, the policy ends at 11 p.m., so you got to be stopped operating by 11 p.m. As we start opening up, hopefully on July 6th for indoor dining, hopefully that'll also take some of that activity out on, you know, out off the street indoors. And then we all are going to have to be a little bit responsible, because if everyone's screwing this up for everyone else, and I'm not just talking about people eating outside at a restaurant, but just people hanging out on their stoop, doing whatever it is, walking around, you know, a lot of people are going to get angry. So I think there's, generally speaking, going to be a collective understanding that we got to make this work. That's why we limited the hours. When we were in the conversation with the city, we said, listen, we understand we can't have people partying right outside until 4 a.m., even though they may be able to serve alcohol till 4 a.m. So I think it's a little bit of compromise. I think the city really wants to work with the businesses to find a way to cooperatively address issues and mediate. I'm also the chair of the city's Nightlife Advisory Board. They created this Office of Nightlife, and they've been working with the Peace Institute over the past couple of years, and they've been really effective in mediation. So instead of there being an issue and you send out an inspector to just basically shut a place down and issue fines, what you need to do is you need to bring the parties together and mediate and say, listen, you know, because would you prefer to have, you know, a vacant storefront? Would you prefer just to have dark streets? Would you prefer to have fewer jobs? Would you prefer to have fewer small businesses? Of course not. We're living in the city. If you want complete silence, you know, go, you know, move to the suburbs or the country somewhere. That's not to say that people don't deserve some rest. They should have, noise out their window at all hours. But I think if we focus on mediation when there are issues, I think we can address a lot of those situations. And like I said, this is from now until, the fall. So we'll make it work. And we just need to cooperate. The residents need to recognize we're doing this for a bigger picture reason. The small businesses have to recognize that people live upstairs, and the customers have to recognize that people live upstairs and these businesses need to survive. So don't screw it up for us.
Absolutely. And you know what, Lauren, now we were talking about the front, but you talk about backyards. Do tell in terms of the experience in trying to cooperate with, let's say you have a residential properties that right in the backyard that are overlooking your backyard. What's that like? You have to negotiate with them?
I mean, going back to 2 years ago, not to put anyone on blast, but we went to the building because we knew that they were going to start a 311 chain to get it shut down. We kind of had some people that were moles. And the guy's like, but I'll be in England. And they're like, we'll call you and let you know to call. So, so they really, and they've gone to a lot of officials already to have this shut down. We managed to push through. I think that they didn't expect this to come. So we were out there so excited and measuring on Monday. And next thing you know, I'm being filmed out the window. And then the super's coming down to tell me that I don't have a right to be in my backyard. And
wow.
So yeah, I anticipate a lot of calls, but I tried back then. I contacted our NCO officers and I said, let's get the officers involved. Let's all sit down together and hash this out. And I went there and we hosted a meeting in the building's foyer. And no matter what, they just didn't want to budge. And I was offering 5 to 8. From 5 to 8 will be open. That's it. Wow. And now I'm like, okay, 5 to 11. You didn't like it then, here we go, 5 to 11. But the truth is, we're not able to open inside right now. Maybe on July 6th that changes. But the fact that someone can be so short-sighted of their own needs when a business and all those people's livelihood are literally shut out right now with no way to operate just kind of speaks to the type of person. And there's a lot of people like that in New York, unfortunately. There's going to be a lot of squeaky wheels and a lot of people making a big stink, but it can't be worse than the fireworks. That's what I keep saying.
Oh, wait a second. Wait. I love our Harlem fireworks. You should come over to Fifth Avenue. These are some quality fireworks. And these guys have done it for years. So it's really.
The show must go on. It can't be worse than that. So we're going to take our risks and move forward with it. And hopefully they won't be harassing guests or anything like that, making anyone else feel unsafe. But, and when it comes to that too, we have, I know that both Andrew and Henry are very adamant about expanding the storefront to be able to form agreements, whether it's a building that's empty or forming surrounding businesses. And the truth is that under the state liquor authority laws, where it's like, something like, 100 feet? If I sell someone a drink to go, that I'm supposed to monitor them and make sure that they're 100 feet away before they open that drink in either direction. And then, then we have less space to put these people. So they're not allowed to just stand around and drink outside, which causes a lot of limits. And we have to keep the 8-foot area clear. Of course, we can't serve underage people. That's not an argument. But, it's putting a lot of pressure. And I had to, as of today, we're starting with security again, which frankly, I can't afford. But I also can't afford to have this shut down. I can't afford to have this roadway sitting that we've been waiting for and hoping for so long. So I do hope that they see, it's already that we're supposed to be policing our staff to come back and come off of unemployment in order to get forgiveness from these PPP loans, which we discussed last time. But now we have to police people on the streets and the sidewalks that historically is like, oh, it's a sidewalk, it's public property. They're like, no, 100 feet on either side.
Wow.
And then I have people on the corner that just, you know, they're little entrepreneurs themselves. They've got little coolers set up, and they have the packaging to look like ours. It's just $2 cheaper. And they're just selling to the people on the street. I'm like, what am I supposed to do about that? I'd have control if I was expanded in that direction, but I can't say anything to them. So,
wow.
Yeah, I do think that expanding will give us more of an ability to police ourselves instead of putting us in this position right now where, you know, we're kind of limited in what we can say to people. We don't want to have any kind of negative interaction with potential guests or with just, you know, local residents. So, you know, it's hard for me to tell my host, you have to go tell that guy to move down 50 feet. You know, so now I have to get and I certainly don't want to have to call the police to talk about the guys selling on the corner and that it's not us, it's them. So it's really stressful, and we ended up making the decision to bring security on every night, even though financially it makes no sense.
Wow.
So Curtis, can I speak to that for a second? Because it connects also to what Andrew was responding to your question about noise complaints.
Go ahead.
The objective here is to really create a safer and better community, right? In as many different ways as we can. When I first started working on this issue 20 years ago, 93% of the available public, sorry, Siri's talking. When I started on this issue 20 years ago, 93% of available public space was given to the use of the private motor vehicle, whether parking or driving. And that includes parkland. That number is now down below 70%. And what's happening as we look at this environment that we're talking about, the streetscape of New York, is do you want Lauren out there taking all this risk, but still hiring security, cleaning, sweeping, and serving, and designing and decorating, and providing food and beverage and jobs, and all these other things? And we have to continue to create conditions that are conducive to this repurposing. And what's really interesting for the noise complaints in backyards in Harlem, people protect noise very, very hard, against noise complaints very, very hard, because it's a interesting acoustic environment. But out on the street, the ability to give all those things to the community with, you also give quiet. So we were all around for the pandemic. I've been in New York City straight through it. And you've never heard our city as quiet, right? And that was the absence of the motor vehicle. You replace that with the sound of silverware clinking, with someone cleaning a glass, pouring a bottle of wine, laughing, enjoying, and policing the community. We are the best public health professionals in our DOH compliance. We can handle food and beverage and public safety like no one else. We do it with great style. We generate revenue and jobs. And so it's really about repurposing as much available public space as we can, including backyards in Harlem, so that we can use that space to restore, as what Andrew talks about, restore ourselves as a community and bring the balance back to the little guy. And the last thing I want to say is this is a local phenomenon. New York City is about to close down again against people from red states, I may point out. And the tourism bubble is a little bit burst for New York right now. This is a hyper-local exercise. We're talking about local jobs, local entrepreneurs, local money, and local tax revenue. And this is the best way to accomplish that in all of those conditions in a city like ours. And lots of other cities in America, by the way.
Andrew, do you have any statistics on how many restaurants are coming back?
Unfortunately, we don't have statistics. I mean, there's more than 25,000 eating and drinking establishments employing more than 300,000 New Yorkers before the pandemic. I think there's only about a little over 100,000 people that are still working. So we've lost about 200,000 jobs. So you put that over the 25,000 plus restaurants. I mean, a lot of them are closed. You know, there's two kind of camps of thought here. One, some people that can figure out a way to do it, they're trying to hold out. They may not open until, you know, after Labor Day or even closer to the year. I think that's depending on where you're located. You know, if you are in Midtown, you rely on all the tourists and all the offices. Well, when are 70 million tourists coming back? When are these office workers coming back? A lot of these companies just announced this week they may not be bringing workers back until the new year. So I think we'll probably see a lot of those restaurants hold off. But then you have neighborhood restaurants, many of which have, you know, closed down, you know, during this already. So it's hard to tell. I think a big factor is going to be what kind of additional support can we get, particularly when it comes to rent. That's your largest fixed cost. There's no way small business owners are going to be able to pay back multiple months of missed rent. And there's no way when they start reopening at reduced occupancy requirements, are they going to pay 100% pre-pandemic rents. So I think the government needs to get the banks that hold the mortgages, the landlords that have the mortgages, and the commercial tenants together and figure out a way not to defer rent, but how do we forgive rent? Because if we don't figure out how to do this now, it's going to be a lot harder once we start seeing defaults throughout the system. And we can only continue to extend the moratorium on closure of the eviction courts for so long. You know, at some point, we need to start opening back up. And what are we going to evict? Thousands of small businesses? What about all the workers? What about all the New Yorkers that are out of job and millions of people? So I think that's the one thing that's not getting attention enough. So I know I kind of went a little bit off from your question there, but
no, that was exactly my question. That was you literally went to what was in my mind, which is that it seems like somebody that needs to be an advocate to start to mediate between restaurateurs and landlords. Because and Lauren, we talked about it last time. Obviously, there's negotiation going on a one-to-one basis, but not everybody has the same leverage to negotiate. Surely, the Starbucks of the world will negotiate better deals for themselves. Everybody else, it's catch as catch can. But what happens to the restaurant that's trying their best to get it started, but they still have this looming back rent that at some point in time they've got to deal with, and they're still dealing with a business model where they're only able to serve a fraction of the people that they serve. And so if they were just barely breaking even, it's not a sustainable business now. So somebody from the city or state, it seems, needs to kind of take the ball on that. Henry, you had some thoughts on it?
I just want to say specifically to our listeners in Harlem to this point, the first and most important action for any restaurant business or bar business in Harlem is to make sure they're part of the New York City Hospitality Alliance, because we educate each other, right? And Lauren can talk. Lauren and I have spent a lot of time on the phone together. I have no interest in her business other than I want to see it thrive. I want it to be there. But with the Alliance, you literally have a group of professionals working from Albany to Washington to New York to the streets and figuring out like ways to do it. And also there's, it's where you learn how to operate really professionally. And Harlem is one of the great hospitality destinations in the history of the world. And we are seeing the ascendance of African-American cooking in a way, whether it's Pierre Thiam coming to the north east corner of our park at Taranga. We are seeing Harlem hospitality, particularly in a Black Lives Matter and a restorative justice moment, and particularly as we move into the green economy. Harlem has a moment that there's incredible potential, and the potential is on our streets. When I first marched into Harlem from Adam Clayton Powell all the way to FDR with my then 14-year-old son, face to face with the police, the most common chant I heard was, whose streets? Our streets. And when you see what like Marcus did to the corner of 125th and Lenox Avenue, and when you see how much we missed Lenox Lounge, and when you see how that sort of entrepreneur that Andrew works with day in, day out, we're all part of that culture, is like, just give a leg up and go along for the ride. Because what great hospitality does, it raises property values, particularly food service. What Danny Meyer did with Union Square in the Green Market was create $50 billion worth of real estate value on a whole number of jobs. Harlem needs to get real about that, particularly with the Manhattanville campus, particularly with the transportation that's happening on the East End. We have an opportunity to have a nexus of a sustainable retail and food shed in our community. You got to activate for that. You have to get active, and you have to knock on a lot of doors. And yeah, ask Andrew to go along for the ride, because he's very, very well connected, knocks on tons of doors, and really ask for your other hospitality professionals to step up, because Harlem has a chance to become, you know, Harlem Park to Park vision. You know, there's another moment here in just serving our own community that I think if we get this right, the streets come alive in a way they haven't been in a while.
So one of the things I was wondering in terms of you, Lauren, in your discussions, if you've had any with your landlord, have they been fruitful, meaningful?
Yeah, we're very close. My one landlord is he actually used to be the CFO of Tommy Boy Records.
Wow.
Typical Harlem landlord.
Yeah.
He's been almost like a mentor to me. They've been really good and understanding. I just have to, you know, I take the time to spell out, like, this is where we are with our business. This is where what we're attempting to do to try to activate, you know, at the Wallace. This is at the Wallace in Harlem Public. And this is, you know, how the PPP loan will work and all this different stuff. So he's been very understanding, and from the beginning, you know, no matter what, we're not going to let you guys fail. So we're going to get through this together. My other landlord, it's like, oh, don't worry about it. Everything's fine. Pay what you can pay. And now I'm trying to open up the backyard, and they're like, oh, wait, let me talk to our lawyers. I'm like, you already signed up on DOB for backyard seating. What do you need to talk to the lawyers about? Last time they tried to charge us more and up our rent in order to use the backyard. And I'm like, it's been in the lease for 3 years. You can't just suddenly up our rent. So anyway, I kind of told them that they could have the keys back if they don't send me a letter of approval by tomorrow. So we'll see how that goes.
Fingers crossed, then, for sure.
Definitely, I definitely look like a lunatic on the 8th in Amsterdam today. You know, I can go with the wave. I can ride this wave, and sometimes I just lose it. So only like once or twice a week.
Gotcha. So, NightWatchman, how we doing there?
I'd say we are in wrap-up mode, so we should probably give everybody just kind of a chance to just give us any final comments.
Andrew, go ahead, buddy.
Well, you know, well, first off, thank you. Good to see everyone. Have this
likewise.
You know, I think I may have said it before, but you know, I don't know if it's Churchill or Mark Twain or someone. You know, never let a good crisis go to waste. And you know, I think we need to use this moment to build a more resilient hospitality industry, a more fair and just society. And sometimes you need things to get really bad to have the momentum to make the changes that are needed. And I think there's so many incredible people that have stood up. Leaders tend to step up during a crisis, and people want to follow leaders, and they want to be supportive, and they want to be advocates. And I think there are so many incredible people that I'm fortunate enough to call friends, family, and people that I'm meeting every day that are just, you know, good people. And there's going to be a lot of loss along the way. There's no doubt. You know, we've lost people to this this pandemic in our industry. Businesses are going to be lost. Let's not let that all go in vain. Let's take this opportunity to fight for what we need moving forward. And my hope is that in a couple years, you know, we'll all be here and we'll be somewhat, in a weird way, nostalgic about that time, saying, do you remember how crazy it was? Do you remember all the things we did, all of our hustles, all the work we did, but we really made changes? And hopefully on the other side, we'll see these changes manifest. 2, a more supportive environment for the small business community, a more just society for every person. You know, we'll do that together, because this is not impacting just one industry, one neighborhood, one group of people. There's so many crises impacting everyone across the board in so many different ways that we can't afford to fail, because if we do, then we all fail. And people have written New York City's obituary many, many times. But you're always wrong. So let's write a better story with a better end. And I'm proud to be doing it with all of you.
Perfect. Henry.
I just Andrew, I like being on these calls with Andrew to listen to him talk, because he nails so many issues. And I guess the only thing I want to add is, I'm a cosmopolitan world traveler, but Harlem is my home. And these 100 days have been some of the most magical, incredible days of my life. And it got really low. It got really scary many, many times. And I think my lowest day was actually Easter Sunday in Harlem, because we all know what Easter Sunday is like normally in Harlem. And it's not that people weren't celebrating, they weren't out. The streets were empty. And it's our responsibility to lead our fellow citizens outside safely, and to protect the most vulnerable in our population, and to really give a leg up to those of us who are looking to serve. And, my lot has been in with my brothers and sisters of color my entire life. When I came to New York in 1979, my mother gave me Mother Jones magazine about apartheid. And it talked about an Adidas factory in South Africa. And I looked down and I was wearing an Adidas top, Adidas shorts, Adidas socks, and Adidas shoes. I probably had like a headband somewhere. And I really, this moment with George Floyd and so many others who will not be forgotten, I just want to say it's a great honor to be working on this with this community, and to be part of this moment of reawakening with our community, because I do believe what Andrew said, that we will persevere. And the Harlem community is expert at perseverance. And hospitality professionals are too. And it's a natural marriage for the sort of image we want the world to have of us. And I think there's a really unique opportunity ahead, really in a time that's far more just and far more fair. And I do think profitable, and I do think we can make great progress at the same time as we mourn our losses. And thank you so much for having me with you.
Oh, no, thank you, Henry, for sure. And you know what, Lauren, you were the last to enter the studio, so you will have the last word.
She was also the first to show up today. So
that's right. That's right. She was. That's true.
Don't make it sound like she just wandered in. Lauren, please.
It's definitely hard to follow those two, and I echo a lot of their sentiments. And I've been listening to and following both Andrew and Henry, and extremely appreciative of what they've been doing for this industry. I guess like on a more personal level, as hard as things are right now, and like triage, like I do still get that excitement, because it's kind of going back to the early days, right? Instead of just making tweaks on your business and making a new menu item or trying a new social media post, it's like, oh, this is a full overhaul, reimagining 3 businesses all at once, again and again and again, as every new change comes. And it can get really stressful. I can cause a lot of anxiety, sadness, loss, but it's really brought me back to that time when I was building this place. And we always, my partners and I always look back at the time. I know, I'm like, I painted that bar front, and I sanded that table, and all these things that you did in that really exciting time. And we've had a lot of those moments again, starting with, we had a fire in March 1st, right before all this happened. So we were coming off a fire, we opened for 4 days, and then the pandemic shut everything down. So I guess it's just really looking for that silver lining. And also, it's very easy right now in hospitality everyone's in some sort of crisis, and it's just remembering that other person. You know, I can sit there and be just thinking about my street seats and how I'm going to open and how I'm going to survive, or I can be also emailing or stopping in like the local taqueria that there's a very good chance that they don't know this is happening, and going in and saying like, hey, you know, you have this space right here. It's 15 feet, and I've brought, you know, my staff members with me because I don't speak Spanish when it comes to construction. So, you know, you need to just help each other, because as much as, of course, I want, number one, to survive this thing, I want this entire industry to come out on the other side of this, because it is so important to the fabric of all these neighborhoods. So, yeah, just don't forget about each other, I guess.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Well, thank you all for joining us today. And we're here every Monday night, 7 to 8 p.m. on WHCR 90.3 FM. Like us and subscribe us on YouTube and Facebook.
Yes,
and we'll have you guys back in the fall. We'll check out how everyone did.
To let us know. That's right, how it went. Right,
and maybe we'll even figure out how to do a live taping at Lauren's
studio.
One of your
that's right. Yes,
there's wings, right?
That's right.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Wings on me.
Okay, everybody. All right.
All right, guys. Thank you so
much. No, thank you.